Hey guys, welcome to this video I made out of boredom. I oftentimes get that itch that I just can't scratch when it comes to video games. I find myself to be quite the connoisseur when it comes to open world games myself. But it's boring to just have the open world to yourself, so I want something that's got some risk and danger to it. I want to survive and thrive in a world that's constantly out to get me. That is the sort of stuff that interests me, and it's incredibly hard for me to look for the perfect game. I've got an idea. Why don't we go through some potential candidates for the 3 best open world survival video games of all time? Now, before we begin, I just want to say that these games aren't ranked by any specific order. We're just going to talk about what I think are the 3 best open world survival games. I also don't have a metric for this, but of course, we're going to be focusing on the objective greatness of these games, and any opinions I have for them are just additional words of wisdom, I guess, for lack of a better word. Anyway, I digress, I'm sorry. Starting off with the first video game is probably, potentially, highly likely, the most likely candidate for this genre, Minecraft. As someone who has played Minecraft since they were young, I keep coming back to Minecraft to scratch that survival open world sandbox-ish itch that I get every now and then. The worlds that you create, or the game creates, are randomly generated and have plenty to offer, so not every run is going to be the same. There may be times when you spawn in a desert void of any useful resources for your adventure, and times when you dominate the world. Now granted, it's not purely a survival sandbox game since it's got creative mode as well, but I think it deserves a spot on this list. You have to defend yourself from creatures of the night and from starvation as well. You have the tools to build yourself grand castles and mansions, to sky bases or underground havens. It really depends on what kind of imagination you've got, mostly. In addition to that, the world isn't going to be unforgiving unless you make it so, hardcore mode. But for the most part, the world is your oyster. You don't also have to worry about running out of things to do because you've got constant updates which add a few things or maybe a lot of things. I nearly forgot to mention the tons of different mods that you can add into the game to make it just a little bit harder, or a lot harder if you wanted to. I don't know. It depends on you. You can also join servers that cater to the survival aspect of the game, whether in PvE or player versus enemy, PvP or player versus player, or PvPvE or player versus enemy mode. From a personal perspective, I think this game does indeed deserve a spot on the best survival video games. I personally find myself coming back to it after months of getting burnt out playing on the latest, AAA slop today. It's still got its magic, but nothing beats old Minecraft. Moving on from the nostalgia, we have DayZ. DayZ is a pretty interesting one to me. There isn't exactly a story to the game and how the world came to be. All that's known in the world of DayZ is that it's been ravaged by a civil war and then bam, zombies. For some reason, whatever that reason is, it is entirely up to you, the player. You make the lore for yourself. I mean, the developers themselves wanted to leave the specifics for this outbreak to the players. Now before I talk about DayZ, I'll give a quick summary of it. If you love suffering, you're probably going to love DayZ. Now, DayZ is a pure survival game. You should take note that DayZ was built and developed over Arma, and if you are aware of the Arma games, you know that the movement for characters is quite weird and clunky. Basically, it's not as smooth as you would expect it to be. You don't get the ability to jump, slide, and run like in other games. Continuing on, you do nothing but survive and try to live for as long as you can. Like a lot of survival games, there is no end game. You scavenge and loot players for food and drink so you don't starve and die of thirst, maybe some ammunition for your weapons and materials for crafting, then you can try and make a base, then hold out. You do all that while avoiding being killed and looted. Other players are most likely going to be hostile and they sure as hell want what you have, and they do not like sharing. That's not always the case though, just like 90% of the time. When you do find yourself a player who seems to be friendly with you, just make sure you don't get too comfortable. I also forgot that you might get cannibalized too. Truly a gamer moment. You don't have to worry about having to eat human meat though, it's just a matter of personal preference, I think. But there is wildlife that you can hunt if you so wish. I believe that would be a better option. Now, the health system is a tad bit complicated. You don't just have a health bar to take care of, you also have injuries and effects that negatively affect your stats. Just like Minecraft, you've got servers that offer PvP, PvE, or PvPvE modes. Now, DayZ is for players who like to take their time going through the map, coming across buildings, scouring those buildings for loot, getting killed by zombies, or fellow players who are, unfortunately for you, coincidentally looting the same building, and if you're lucky, you might be able to avoid other players, and if you're feeling pretty ballsy, you can look for a fight. It's quite the game to learn and master, so if you're looking for a slow burn with a little hint of self-hatred developed over a period of time while you play, then you might enjoy this. That was a mouthful. The final game we have for this video is Rust. If you already knew about DayZ prior to this video, then you may also know about Rust. It's just like DayZ, minus the clunkiness and the jank and the zombies. Rust is more player combat focused, fast-paced, and is a bit more action-packed. It also has a more extensive crafting and building system. You have the ability to create more elaborate structures than you could with DayZ. I'm talking about building literal houses instead of just fortifying them. Hell, you could even build a castle if you wanted to. I don't see why not. Anyway, the story of the game is canon and there is no definitive story to it. It's really more like lore. Now it depends on the server you join, but for the most part the map is different. They're randomly generated and made to be harsh to you. No run will be the same. If you've got friends to play with, you may as well not see each other for quite some time. Good luck giving directions to each other. Some places that you visit may be irradiated and you might run into wildlife that you can hunt and eat. Now, of course, radiation will kill you, but about the wildlife. You can hunt for them and some will obviously hunt you down too if you aren't careful, but you don't have to worry about having to eat human meat or being human meat yourself. Like DayZ, other players will most likely be hostile to you and will kill you any chance you get. If you don't feel like walking to places to scavenge and or loot, you can just stand idly by waiting for an airdrop, but that's pointless. This is a survival game, not a spoon-feeding simulator. Get killed, get looted, get skinned alive and eaten. Get comfortable with the idea that you aren't safe because, well, you really aren't. I think that is the magic that I like when it comes to survival games, exploring a vast open world that's harsh to you as it is to other players. I like being able to suffer in-game just like I already do in my life, but kidding aside, being able to hunt, build, and dominate the world or be dominated by other players, honestly, it's a pretty nice experience. Couple that with the ability to communicate with other players, whether via chat or proximity voice chat or what have you, it certainly makes up for a fun and funny experience. Now, I understand that narrowing this video to just 3 games doesn't do other games fair, but these are 3 of the most played survival games, which is a bit of a long run itself. What do you guys think of this list, and moreover, what do you think of the games we talked about? Drop your opinions on the comments section, leave a like, and if it isn't a bother to you, consider subscribing. It's been a pleasure. I'll see you all next time.